Year 1899. Dr. Alexander. Teaching mechanical and engineering at Columbia University. While deep in thought, his friend David reminded him that he's about to be late for a date with some young woman. Alexander almost forgot, and they both hurried back to Alexander's house. On the way, Alexander said that the principal rejected it, his proposal to use solar energy. And David said that Alexander's ideas too radical. Alexander replied that he wanted his students to dream about things. It could become a reality. Instead of being complacent or conservative like everyone else, he told David to look around and see who was wearing the team bowler hats. Identical black. Then he said he wanted to see people throw them away and start asking questions. When I got home, they met Alexander's housekeeper and assistant. She told Alexander, "Go change into a different set of clothes that aren't covered in chalk dust." David then looked through Alexander's bizarre inventions, like electric toothbrushes, 2 future city plans, and also protect Alexander. Don't waste your time on that eccentric German named Einstein. They replied that Einstein had very interesting ideas, and he will support it to the best of his ability. Shortly after, Alexander hurried away to meet the girl. As we were about to enter the park, a woman asked him if he wanted to buy flowers. This reminded him that he had promised to bring flowers. But immediately, he was fascinated by a carriage that wasn't pulled by horses. The driver accidentally started it and Alexander quickly pulled the brakes in time. The driver was grateful and offered him a ride. Even though I really want to, Alexander still refused because he had more important things to do and continue into the park. He arrived at the ice rink where the girl was waiting and called his name. Emma reminded him that he was late. Alexander said he arrived as quickly as possible. She asked where the bouquet was. Alexander apologized for forgetting due to being distracted. He invited her for a walk in the park, and she agreed. The girl noticed he was trembling and asked if something was wrong. He said that everything was bad. "When she's missing from my life." She was happy. He said they were meant for each other and then proposed to her. He took out a ring with a moonstone. And the ghost was extremely happy because it is her birthstone. A few seconds later, a man emerged from the bushes. He pulled out a gun and demanded their wallets and jewelry. When he tried to take Alexander's ring of retaliation, and the gun accidentally discharged. The bullet hit Emma. Alexander held Emma in his arms as she took her last breath. Final. 4 years later, Alexander was engrossed in his work when David came to visit. He said he was worried about the old man. Alexander said he understood, but David needed to leave. David said he wouldn't let him get away with it like that, and asked him what he's doing. Alexander stopped him when he was about to look behind the curtain. She told him to come to dinner. He will show it next week. David agreed and left. But when he left, Alexandra muttered that in another week, they wouldn't even have this conversation. Alexander then straightened himself up. "Take out your favorite pocket watch." Then he walked over to the machine he had built. He sat down at the computer. "Attach the joystick and pull it towards yourself. Time starts running backward." He reappeared at the ice rink. But this time, the ghost told him to come early. She asked where the flowers were, but Alexander kissed her in response. And she liked that. He invited her to the city, and they both rode in a horse-drawn carriage to the town. While walking, the ghost saw a horseless carriage. Pull and tell Alexander to look. But he ignored it. To say, "It's just a machine." Emma immediately understood that something was amiss. Because of Alexandra, never overlook impressive inventions. She asked if anything was wrong. Alexander reassured her that everything was fine. He told her to go home and wait for him. He'll be back later, but he might seem confused. Why didn't they meet on the ice rink? She didn't quite understand, but she trusted him and agreed. Before leaving, she asked for the bouquet he had promised, so Alexander went to buy it. But at that moment, the horseless carriage suddenly started moving on its own, and to frighten the horses pulling the cart nearby. What shouldn't have happened actually happened. Emma dies once again in front of Alexander's eyes. After some time, Alexander told David that it shouldn't have happened, because they are no longer in the park. When Alexander said he could come back 1,000 times and still have to witness Emma. There are 1,000 different ways to die. David became confused. Alexander said to himself, he couldn't find the answer at the current time. Next, Alexander is once again sitting in his time machine at home. To start it, push the joystick forward. and observe the acceleration time. A day passes by as quickly as an hour. A month is now condensed into a single minute. And finally, a year passed. In just a few seconds, his house disappeared and became a garage. Fashion is constantly changing. Horizon. The city is changing every moment. And then suddenly, he arrived in the year 2030. He stopped the time machine. He stepped outside and hesitated, observing everything around him. Finally, he decided to go into the city. Go to the New York Public Library. Here he saw a librarian in 3 different forms. Self-introduction. I'm Vox 114. This made Alexandra find the technology very strange. Vox says he is connected with every database on Earth and ask him what he wants to know. Alexander asked why it's impossible to change the past. Right away, Vox accesses the science fiction library. But Alexander, insisting on access to genuine scientific documents, Vox then gave the answer. The past cannot be changed, because time travel is impossible. Alexander thought aloud. He needs to go further in the future. Only then will we find the answer. And he left. He began to move forward into the future, but felt a tremor and immediately stopped. And fell in the year 2037. He saw that everything was in ruins. And then a military vehicle appeared. The soldiers got off the plane and arrested him. They said they had to evacuate because the moon was breaking apart. At that moment, the Earth's crust began to crack and Alexander tried to go back to the time machine. But a strong earthquake knocked him unconscious. As soon as the machine starts operating, extremely fast acceleration time and outside, thousands of years have passed. In just 1 second, trees grow and then disappear, forming canyons. Even ice ages come and go. Before Alexander woke up, he stopped the machine and found himself on Earth. 800,000 years later, Alexander was seen sleeping somewhere. I dreamt about Emma and being taken care of by a woman. One day, he woke up. I didn't know where I was, and I put on my clothes. As he was doing that, he saw a boy, and the boy immediately ran away. He chased after them and suddenly stopped before a magnificent view, a village nestled in a mountain gorge. The boy shouted something that the old man didn't understand, and immediately, people appeared from everywhere. They all spoke a language he had never heard before. But there is one. The woman said she knew the language of stones. And he can be understood. They started chatting, but it was quickly interrupted by a loud sound, causing people to wither away. That night Alexander, talking to the woman and her younger brother, Alexander explained to the curious boy that he comes from a very busy place, a place where everyone wears black hats on their heads. Then he gave Cullen his pocket watch. When Callan had gone to sleep, Mara told him that their parents had left the place. And Alexandra said that he was very sorry to hear that. Looking up at the moon, he told himself that David was right. He went too far. A while later, he revealed that he came from a different time. And because of the unusual things surrounding him, Mara believes that night, Alexander woke up from a nightmare in which a metal head shouted his name. Callan also woke up because he had the same dream as Mara. Explained that everyone here has it. Something that surprised Alexandra greatly. Mara. For Alexandra. View a collection. The stones have different words in the language of stones. Later in the day, Alexander asked her where the elderly people were. And she replied that they had all gone somewhere else. He asked her if she meant they were dead. But she replied mysteriously that there are some things that are better left unsaid. She explained that they were not living in the same past, and in remembrance of parents, by creating these giant wind turbines. They both went to the beach, and Mara led him to the time machine. Alexander checked and found it seemed fine. Mara asked if the machine was working. Can he take Cullen with him? Alexandra asked for the reason, but she didn't give a clear answer. Suddenly, strange sounds rang out and Mara. They started running and shouting that they had to find Cullen. Right. When they returned, Alexandra saw that everyone was panicking. Strange creatures appeared and shoot arrows tipped with tranquilizer darts. And Mara was hit. Alexander pulled the arrow out of her shoulder and realized it had an extremely strong smell. Creatures that emerged from beneath the ground and began hunting down those who had been hit by arrows. Pull them down to the ground. Alexander saw that Cullen had been hit, and a creature was chasing the boy. He rushed forward to fight the creature and save the boy. This caused it to switch to chasing him. When it caught up, Alexander dodged the attack. He began climbing a wind turbine. But the creature also climbed up and grabbed him. They both fell to the ground. The creature that killed my great-grandfather killed him, but Callan appeared with a torch and saved him. Just then, Mara's scream rang out from a distance. The creature fled into the forest and caught her. He pulled her down onto the soft sand. Utterly desperate, they tried digging in the sand, but to no avail. He asked the villagers why they didn't resist. They replied that anyone who resisted would be arrested first, and the money would be forfeited. He asked Cullen where they were being taken. Cullen replied, "Nobody knows, but there is a cave nearby, with ghosts who could help him." That night, Cullen led Alexandra to the cave. Inside, Alexandra found a familiar object. Suddenly, Books 114 spoke up. Alexandra reassured Cullen that there was nothing to worry about. Vox said he misses everyone he used to talk to. Alexander asked what had happened since the last time they met. Vox replied that humankind used to be one, but now they have become two species, a living on the ground. One lives underground. Ask where the creatures of the earth brought people to. Vox said he once had a friend who escaped. Originating from the eastern forest. If they follow the sound of breathing, they will find it. They arrived at the place where the skull was. Appeared in my dream. Alexandra tells Cullen to return to the village. Before going to Callan, he said he had dropped his pocket watch during the attack, and the creature that took it. Alexander wondered why they took that. Soon after, Alexander stepped inside the skull, passing through underground tunnels, and finally arrived at a large empty space filled with creatures. He found a room full of clothes, and recognized Mara's necklace. But when they saw the horrifying knives and tools, he was frightened and tripped, and fell into a pit filled with floating human bones. Domestic. Immediately afterwards, a creature, they grabbed him and forced him deep into a secluded area. Below, he found Mara in a cage. But she didn't react at all. When Alexander returns, he saw a strangely pale man. This man's name is Morlock. Start telling the story about how humanity was split into two sexes. A very long time ago, after the moon falls from the sky, Earth, it is no longer capable of sustaining humankind. Some people managed to stay on the ground, but the rest had to hide underground. Centuries after life on Earth recovered, they can no longer return to the sunlight. So they gave birth, reproduce, and evolve into many different classes. Underground. There are groups that possess extremely keen eyesight and hearing. Other groups have superior muscle strength. Morlock explained that he belonged to the class, has developed brain capacity, capable of seeing through things, and control other people's thoughts, including Alexander. He said that he controlled those who lived underground to ensure they don't overconsume, avoid depleting food resources. Alexander angrily asked, "So, are humans just food for you?" Morlock answered yes, except for those who are suitable to be hosts, reproduces like Amara. Alexander angrily said, "That is the destruction of all natural laws." Morlock countered that it was Alexander's actions that were the reason. Time travel. It is also a violation of the laws of nature. Morlock added that Alexander, always haunted by the question of what would happen if, he created an illusion in Alexander's mind. Inventions. Dreams about Emma and what might have happened. Morlock explained that Alexander created the time machine because Emma is dead. If she lived, the machine would never have existed. That means Alexander can't use it to go back and save her, because he himself is the result, inevitably so, from that tragedy. Morlock brings the time machine before Alexander and said that now he had the answer. Go home. Alexander requested the pocket watch back. And when Morlock gave it, Alexander took him. The engine started and they both began to wrestle inside. Finally, Morlock was thrown out of the machine. He was only clinging to Alexander's neck. But outside the machine, time flies so fast. Morlock aged and died within seconds. When Alexander stops the engine in the distant future, he saw the species underground. It destroyed all life on the surface. Then Alexander went back to Mara's time and saved her. He started the machine and locked it with his pocket watch. They both ran through the horde of creatures that had now lost their master. Already, Alexander trapped them and continued running towards the exit. Shortly afterwards, Alexander was hit by an arrow and is marked by its smell. The creatures began chasing them into the cave. As they were close to climbing to the ground, the watch shattered and the timepiece exploded, creating a wave of time that spread throughout the cave. All living things within the area died or disappeared. Immediately, both of them managed to escape. Pulled up by the villagers, from a distance, the group of people saw the wave of time spreading along the tunnel network, exterminate all the creatures. Mara apologizes for the machine being destroyed, but Alexandra said it was okay, it was just a machine. and they held hands. In the final scenes, Vox was seen telling stories to the children. Listen from the vast library, in my memory. Alexander stands alongside Mara and Cullen. Show them where his house used to be. Describe what it looks like inside. At another time, Mrs. Watchett told David that Alexander. It's been a week. David replied that he was happy for Alexander. Hopefully he has found a new place to live. He asked her, would Watchett be interested in working for him and his wife? At least until Alexander can return. And she happily agreed. When Alexander left the room, she said, "May God bless you," from the window overlooking the street. David stood looking at Alexander's house one last time. Then walk away, take off the black bowler hat and throw it away. Just as Alexander had hoped, at the end of the movie.